Meanwhile, after the collapse of talks with the United States, a Taliban delegation has met with Russian officials in Moscow. Confirming the meeting, the Russian Foreign Ministry has said that the Taliban delegation met with Zamir Kabulov, the Russian Special Envoy for Afghanistan. Moscow has also stressed the need to relaunch negotiations between the United States and the Taliban. It further added that the terror group was willing to pursue dialogue with Washington. And the meet comes after the United States President Donald Trump announced that the Afghan talks were dead. Trump said that he had cancelled a meet with the Taliban leaders at Camp David in the United States after a car bomb in Kabul, which killed 12 people, including an American soldier. Now, the Afghan peace talks began in Qatar last year as the United States has sought to end its longest war and also set a deadline for withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan. Many have said that it is essentially a withdrawal that was being negotiated by the United States and not necessarily a peace deal, because a ceasefire was never a part of this deal that was being thrashed between the Taliban representatives and Zalmay Khalilzad. Now, under the draft deal, the Taliban had to agree to sort of a ceasefire in exchange for U.S. troop drawdown, but this ceasefire was only against the U.S. troops. But within Afghanistan, they could continue fighting with the other factions. Meanwhile, there are also rising fears of terror attacks as Afghanistan is set to hold its presidential polls later on this month on the 28th of September. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan is the self-proclaimed messiah of Muslims, especially if they are Kashmiris. But Imran Khan has once again feigned complete ignorance of the persecution of the Uyghur Muslims by Islamabad's all-weather friend China. Now, in an interview that Imran Khan gave, he has said that he hasn't got a chance to discuss the issue of Uyghur Muslims with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. In fact, Imran Khan went on to say, and I quote, "We've been facing so many of our internal problems right now that I don't really know much about this problem. And since we've been in power for about 1 year domestically, apart from the economy and now with Kashmir, we've been inundated with problems. And I will say one thing for China, for United States, China has been the best friend." Now remember, Imran Khan's statements come amidst global outcry over the mass detentions of Uyghur Muslims in China. Now contrast this with what Imran Khan had recently said during a rally in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Imran Khan had alleged that Muslims were being persecuted in India and also had called on the world community for support. This even as Islamabad failed to garner any international support on the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir. In fact, this is not the first time that Imran Khan has claimed to have had no knowledge of the persecution of Uyghurs. Listen to what he had said in an interview earlier this year.
What's your stance on China's treatment of Uyghur Muslims?
Frankly, I don't know much about that.
Turkey has said it was a great shame on humanity, and you've also spoken up in defense of Muslims around the world.
It's true. I mean, Muslim world is probably going through its worst phase right now.
But you won't speak out against what's happening in China?
If I had enough knowledge, I would speak about it. Actually, it is not so much in the papers.
But there's Pakistani men that have gone to protest about their wives being detained.
I haven't heard about that. Thank you.
So talk about double standards. Imran Khan, of course, leads the way. Sample this. Pakistan is in fact amongst the 37 countries which, believe it or not, has defended China's treatment of the Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province, which is the home of Uyghur Muslims. It may not be surprising after all, considering that Pakistan is under China's debt. This as Beijing is building a $60 billion CPEC, that is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Now, the infrastructural project, interestingly, begins in Xinjiang province.